Yo, what is up guys, and welcome to another Wild Rift video. And in today's video I'm gonna be giving you guys an updated tier list for every single role in the game. And today's video is gonna be one of those long ones because so much has changed. It is absolutely unbelievable how much everything has changed. Even Nasus is in the S tier, so that should tell you how crazy things will get. And this is only the Baron lane tier list. There are timestamps in the description to just skip to the tier list that you want to see. But before we get into it, just a quick word from the video sponsor. This video is sponsored by wildstats.gg. There's not going to be any fancy edits for this one. I'm just going to show you guys how the website works. So the website is still in beta. It's already amazing, but it's going to get even more amazing. And that's why I want to get you guys familiar with this website. So my favorite by far is checking out the champions and the stats of the champions. So you can check out the tier. For me, it would be Master Plus. And then the stats from like 30 years ago. And you can check out roles as well, but I just want to see. You can filter it by pick rate, win rate, games. I want to see which champion has the highest win rate, for example. And as you can see in Master Plus, Singed and Aurelion Sol. Like, knowing all of this is so amazing. And then you can also look up your name if you want. As you can see, I've already done that. And you can find stats about yourself as well. There is a link in the description to check it out. I recommend it to you. Back to the video. Alright, back to the video. And guys, oh my god. So much. So let's get into it. So much has changed. Graves, first of all. The thing about Graves is, I feel like Graves was a hidden gem before the update already. And then they also, like, what I mean with that, by the way, is like, I feel like he was underrated. Like, he was good, but just no one played him. Now they buffed his jungle clear, and they brought out an item, which is the Hole Breaker, which works perfectly for him in the Baron lane. And I put a star next to him, not necessarily because he's currently broken, but because I think he's like, his potential still needs to be reached in the Baron lane. I just think people are not good enough at him yet. You know what? Let's make a challenge for this tier list. If this video reaches 2,000 likes, I'm going to be bringing out the Graves video within the next week. And I'll either do jungle Graves or Baron lane Graves, doesn't matter. But if you want to see it, make sure you give the video a like. Just the thing is, Graves is so powerful. Like, you can play safe in the early game, and especially like in the mid-late game, he becomes a monster. And in the Baron lane with the Hole Breaker, guys, the beauty about Graves is, with a Hole Breaker, even if there is an enemy under the turret, you can still just take the turret. That's the beauty of it, and that's what makes him the best split pusher, really. Incredibly strong champion. Next up, we have Darius, and like, the thing about Darius is he was already S+ tier, and then the new Death Stance perfectly complements his kit. Perfectly. So when you're at a very low amount of HP and you execute an enemy with your ultimate, you not only take away 35% of the damage that you took, because it takes it away, you also heal up for 15% of your maximum health over the next 2 seconds. Now, can you imagine you ult someone, then you ult someone else, then you ult someone else. When you're at a low amount of HP, you're going to be healing so much. It's crazy. And the item is just literally the perfect item for Darius, which still keeps him at an S+ tier role. I will make a Darius video also very soon. Next up, we have Fiora, and Fiora got nerfed a little bit, which actually did hit her in the Baron lane, because the how do you call it? The damage from her first ability, the flat damage, yes, the flat damage got nerfed, which does hurt her in the early game. She does less damage in the early game, which you will feel, but still S+ tier, like, incredible duelist, also really good with the Hole Breaker item, really good with the Divine Sunder, just a very good champion still. Next up, we have Gragas, and like AP Gragas, tank Gragas, it really doesn't matter. S tier champion. This, like, he always works. He always works. And if you pick him into the right draft, he works even better. I made a Gragas video like 2 days ago, I believe. Check it out. I think I even made it yesterday. I don't remember, but check it out. It's insane. He's so powerful. Next up, we have Sett, and even though Sett took some hits, as in nerfs, he didn't, like, he especially took hits in the jungle, but not really that many in the Baron lane. He's still really powerful. Like, he provides a lot of sustain for his team, as in, like, he's super tanky, and in the laning matchup, he deals a lot of damage. Like, he has a lot of 1 versus 1 damage. And then the second ability as well, like, even if you get out-traded, boom, you throw it right back at the enemy. He just really has it all. And then that ultimate too, it counters so many tanks. Just Sett has it all, basically. He's a really solid Baron laner. Next up, we have Renekton, and the only thing about Renekton that doesn't make him S+ tier is his late game. Like, early game, absolutely incredible. Mid game, incredible, right? Like, with his ultimate, so damn powerful. His snowballing potential is through the roof. But if you don't win your lane and you get to the late game, useless. Absolutely useless. He also gets absolutely dumpstered by Graves, so that also kind of keeps him at the S tier because Graves is a really strong pick. So, you know, he's a solid champion, but it's just not S plus tier. Next up we have Camille. And the thing about Camille is, she kinda is S plus tier, but it just takes so much skill to play her at that level that I put her in the S tier. Like, I know that the skilled player will always make her work and pretty much win every lane, but it's hard. Like, Camille is an insanely hard champion, and she's strong. Like, don't get me wrong, she's insanely strong, but I just don't feel she pairs, you know, against Graves, Darius, and Fiora. She's really strong, but just not that strong. Next up, we have Garen, and Garen is not really the same old Garen, because the same old Garen was an S plus tier champion. Now he's an S tier champion because they nerfed his flat damage. Like, now you need to buy some attack damage items to actually get it up. So you can, to actually get the damage. That's what I'm trying to say. So you cannot just go for like a Black Cleaver and then full tank. I mean, you can, sure you can, but then you're really going to be dealing very, very little damage. Like, they even nerfed his ultimate damage, so keep that in mind. You really kind of have to get attack damage items like the Sterix Gauge, like the Death Stance, etc., for him to still be strong, which is going to make you less tanky. So, you know, that's still really strong, but not broken. Next up, we have Riven. The buff to her third ability didn't really change too much in high elo, but she was already an S tier champion. Just, she's really, really powerful, right? Like, she's incredibly strong. Her late game is really strong. As long as you just don't pick her into heavy CC, she can just dance around in the enemy and completely decimate them. And her snowballing potential through the roof as well. Just an incredible champion, really. But enough about Riven. Let's stop talking about Riven. Let's talk about the next champion. It's my boy Nasus, guys. I have genuinely put Nasus in the S tier, and I'm not even kidding with you guys right here. I am blood serious. That's what we say in the Netherlands, blood serious. So I'm saying it in English as well, just to show you how serious I am about this. Nasus is S tier, and in my hands, he's S plus tier in the right draft. But that is the reason why I put him in the S tier. Nasus is essentially kind of broken, but there is a massive but right here, like such a huge but that you've never seen such a but before. And that but is the draft, right? Like that's the whole thing about Nasus. He can be super good, but if you pick him in the wrong draft, he still gets dumpstered, right? Like, if you pick him against a Fiora, pick him against a Darius, pick him against like even a Garen perhaps, pick him against a Camille, you kind of get destroyed, right? Like, because they deal the true damage. But if the enemy doesn't have those types of champions, they don't have the sustained damage to take it on, absolute S plus, maybe even S plus tier champion if you know how to play him. And if you don't know how to play him, just watch my videos. I'm literally the best Nasus that I've ever seen. So if you want to learn Nasus, you gotta see my videos on this champion, because this is like kind of my main. Nasus and Jhin are like my lovely champions. But let's not talk about the next one. Enough Nasus. Next up we have Jax, and I was kind of hesitating because I don't feel Jax is that powerful. It's just with the Hole Breaker, it works so well on him. And the reason that I've put him in the S tier, because he may not be able to win lane easily, but if you're like 5,000 gold behind on Jax, okay, let's compare it to a normal champion first. If you're like 5,000 gold behind on any other champion, you kind of get dumpstered in the game, right? Like, you just cannot do anything. But Jax, with the Hole Breaker, even though you're 5,000 gold ahead, it probably takes him like 1.5 minutes to push down your entire lane, like 3 turrets. So that is why, basically, like, if you just play him correctly, even if you're super behind, if you're able to avoid the enemies and just split push, you're still going to be providing massive value to your team, even though you're behind. So while Jax may not necessarily be the strongest champion, he's just always valuable if played correctly. And yeah, I'm gonna make a new video for Jax too. I shouldn't forget. By the way, about the giveaway, I will pick winners, don't worry. I'll pick it in a few days. And there is going to be a new giveaway, by the way. Put a comment under this video. This month, I'm also giving away 8 legendary skins. So put a comment under the video. Let me know what you want to see me play in the next patch, because I think that would be very exciting to see. Like, I want to read the comments and see what you guys truly want to see me play. I know some champions and I'm working on some, but just let me know. I want to see, and also give likes to other comments that you see. For example, someone comments cannon or something, you want to see it as well, give it a like. Just so I kind of know what to do, because I'm all over the place this patch. I'm literally playing everything, so I kind of know what to do. That's also why it took me quite a while to make this tier list, because I really wanted to try out everything to give you guys an accurate tier list. So next up we have Irelia, and I hate Irelia. This champion is so stupid. It's just so powerful. Like, the thing is, if Irelia gets behind, sure, you can deal with her, But if she gets ahead, it's unbeatable. A good Aurelia. It's kind of the same story as Camille, although Aurelia is probably not as hard to play as Camille. It's just unbeatable, especially with that stupid Death Stance item. Aurelia just completely destroys your team and gets out of it with full HP. I don't know why that's a thing, but it is a thing. So that's why she's in the S tier. You know, the thing is, she's a very hard champion to play, and if she falls behind, she will struggle. That is why I've put her in the S tier, not in the S plus tier. So, you know, she's strong, especially with the buff, very, very strong. Next up, we have Olaf. In the Baron lane, he's pretty good. By the way, here, I'm not going to talk that much about the champions, because these are only the A tier, B tier, and C tier. I'm mostly going to be talking about the S plus and S tier champions. Olaf is just solid, right? Like, he's just solid. He can do fine in his lane. He can win a lot of 1 versus 1s. It's just an okay champion. Next up, we have Mundo, and I am experimenting with some crazy builds on Mundo. I don't want to spoil you guys yet, because I want to show you guys the actual video when I find the right one. But I feel Mundo is a bit underwhelming. Underrated, not underwhelming, underrated. He's very strong. He's very, very, very strong. And like, I never understand why people don't spam Mundo, because I really never see Mundo. He's really, really powerful. Next up, we see Vayne. We have Vayne. Vayne is just the annoyingly obnoxious Baron laner. She's not that good, but she's good enough to be picked in certain scenarios. Like if you're up against that Nasus in the Baron lane, you can just pick the Vayne and have a relatively easy lane. Although not the current Nasus could actually beat Vayne, believe it or not. But still, like he will have a hard time against the Vayne. Next up, we have Tryndamere, and the new Solari Charge Blade is quite literally the perfect item for Tryndamere. It's even stronger than the old Solari Charge Blade if you didn't know already. So Tryndamere, solid, quite solid, right? Like, you have to pick him into the right composition. However, like, he works really well against champions that have resets. What I mean with resets is champions like Darius, like Katarina, like Jinx, like there's another one. Darius, Jinx, Katarina, and there's another one. Which one is it? Come on, which one is it? How do I not know? Tristana is also a champion with a reset. Yeah, Tristana. But there is another one, by the way. But oh, Master Yi, yes, I got it. Master Yi and Tristana. So he's really good against those types of champions. If you're playing against those types of champions, pick up the Tryndamere, use your ultimate, become immortal for 5 seconds, and you will really, really, really deny the power of those reset champions. Because when they cannot reset, they're missing a big part of their kit. Next up, we have Wukong. Basically, Wukong works perfectly with that new item, Divine Sunderer. So let me just quickly message a friend of mine to ask to play. Wanna play in like 40 minutes. Okay, so what I was saying is Wukong just has a perfect item, Divine Sunderer. So he does really well into tanks. The problem is, Harvey, in the current meta, you're not going to be seeing a lot of tanks. As you can see, everyone in the S plus and the S tier is not really a tank. Like, sure, Garen and Nasus are pretty tanky, or like Garen is a tank, sorry. Nasus, I wouldn't even classify as a tank anymore. Like, sure, he's tanky, but he's more of a bruiser. He deals so much damage. So Wukong is just not going to be a good pick generally. Singed is the hidden broken champion, right? Like, in the right draft, he's super, super powerful. Next up, we have Akali. I don't like Akali in the Baron lane, but she's okay with the skilled player. Then we have Pantheon. He has a really good ultimate, of course. You know, his ultimate to dash around. But he just feels a bit underwhelming, especially against those bruisers. Like, Graves will destroy him. Darius will do good against him. Gragas will destroy him. Seth will destroy him. Renekton will destroy him. Nasus will destroy him, etc., etc., etc. He just gets destroyed by all of these champions, especially because of the Divine Sunderer. He just never wins. Because like, you can go in, do a lot of damage, but then the enemy is just going to heal up with the Divine Sunderer. Next up, we have Jace. I don't even want to talk about Jace. I hate that champion so much that I'm literally not even going to say anything. Then we have Jarvan, which I feel is okay, I guess. And then Kill. The reason that I haven't put Kill in the C tier is because Kill is actually an S tier champion if you combine her with Yuumi. That is the only reason why I've put her in the B tier. Besides that, she's useless. Next up, Malphite. Malphite is very underwhelming in the current patch. Very, very, very underwhelming. Especially because of the Divine Sunderer. The item quite literally hard counters Malphite, because Malphite likes to buy a lot of health items. Divine Sunderer deals 10% of the enemy's max HP as physical damage. So all of the champions above that get a Divine Sunderer completely destroy Malphite right now. Shan feels weak. He just feels weak. Like, what am I supposed to say? I saw it. I was kind of trying to believe in the champion, but he just feels very underwhelming and very weak. Kennen, like, sure, can work well in late game, but it just takes too long. And especially with the current meta, with all of these champions, I just don't think Kennen is going to work in the meta. Like, he just doesn't. Teemo, yeah, let's just go to the jungle and not even talk about Teemo. So next up, the jungle. And here we have our disgusting boy. Our boy that everyone hates. Our boy that once had a special Yi tier. If you guys remember the old tier list. Has yet again risen to the top of the S plus tier. This is already the second time that Master Yi has gotten to the S plus tier. What am I supposed to say? The champion is broken. Broken. If there was an S plus tier on this website, I would have put him in the S plus tier. Just absolutely absurdly broken. Crazy broken. Like crazy. Next up, we have Gragas, and I'm just really in love with Gragas. I just love how the champion works. You can go full AP Gragas, which is a very strong build, and you can go for the tank Gragas build. Yet again, I made a tank Gragas video, I believe yesterday or the day before yesterday. You have to watch it. It changes the game. With Fimbo Winter especially now, quite literally the perfect item for Gragas. Just S plus tier, even with a star right there. Then we have Evelyn, and I always kind of put Evelyn in the S tier, but S plus tier, guys. This champion is just so dumb. The invisibility after level 5 is just so dumb. The late game one-shots are all just so dumb. It's like such a dumb champion. It's basically Master Yi 2.0. Just so dumb. You get a free assassination every single team fight. Then you run away, you become invisible, and you assassinate someone else. It's just that stupid. Like, S plus tier. All you have to do, get to the late game, get some items, and just hard carry the game. Next up we have Lee Sin. Lee Sin is just a solid champion, S plus tier worthy. You know, he's one of the strongest early game champions. He does really well. In the skilled hands, does really well. If a player is very good macro wise and knows how to handle Lee Sin, he can make it work. Like, you can get so many early game kills with Lee Sin, get your teammates ahead, and provide a lot of value that the other junglers really can't. Next up we have Kha'Zix, and I feel he's perhaps a bit underwhelming. And what I mean with underwhelming as an S plus tier champion, obviously he's still very strong. I just feel he's a bit underwhelming, just a bit, as in, like, I nearly put him in the S tier, but no, he's still an S plus tier champion. Just his early game 1 versus 1ing is insane. His mid and late game power is insane too. Just his one-shotting to the squishies is just so crazy. Next up we have Xin Zhao, an S tier on top of the S tier, guys. Xin Zhao, he's really strong. I played him as well, of course, to test it out. Really strong. Like, his second ability deals more damage now. You can clearly feel it. I thought that you wouldn't feel it, but you can definitely feel the bonus damage on the second ability. And then his first ability is on such a low cooldown, which makes it so amazing. Like, you can spam your abilities much more. Definitely an S plus tier champion, if not even S plus tier. I don't have enough data for that yet, because I've only played like 3 games of Xin Zhao. I dominated all 3 games, but still, I don't just want to put a champion in the S plus tier because I dominated 3 games with him. I feel like, I definitely think, you know what? Let's give him a star. He's in the S tier with a star. I think he has potential to be in the S plus tier. Next up we have Jax. Yet again, even with nerfs, just still an S tier champion. So powerful. You can just farm your jungle. It takes longer now, but still, you can just farm your jungle, get to the late game, and provide a lot of value. Next up, we have Graves, which I talked about, right? Like, if this video reaches 2,000 likes, I'll make a Graves video. Yeah, what am I supposed to say? He's just really strong, and his jungle clear is significantly faster now. Like, you can clear so much more jungle now and funnel a lot of gold in yourself, get to that late game power of Graves, and carry the game. So the buff to his first ability, which now deals 50% extra damage to jungle camps instead of 100%, instead of 150, sorry. So you clear it much faster, because his first ability is a big part of his jungle clear. You know, when you're clearing out like a lot of these tiny minions which body block your basic attacks, that first ability is going to clear right through them. So that's what makes him an S tier jungler. Next up we have Rengar, which is Evelyn 3.0, right? Like, it's Evelyn 3.0. Yeah, same story as Evelyn, but just doesn't do the job as well as Evelyn, basically. And the problem about Rengar is there is better counter items against Rengar, right? Like, you have the Death Stance, you have the Guardian Angel, especially because ADCs can be going for the Guardian Angel as well. and the Crystaline's Reflector. You just have better counters to Rengar than to Evelynn, because against Evelynn, only a little, like not every champion can just go for a With's End. Maw of Marmortius absolutely sucks, so that is why Evelynn is in the S+ tier. If the items were good, Evelynn would be sitting right next to Rengar. Next up, Wukong. Same story as Baron Lane. Divine Sunder is just so good on him. And then in the jungle with his ultimate and everything like that, very, very strong champion. Good tank and deals a lot of damage as well. Next up we have Olaf. Olaf with the Death Stance as well, insanely good. And in the jungle too, you know, he deals the true damage, he has that ultimate, and especially if you pair him with the Enchanter support, insanely powerful. Really, really strong jungler. Next up we have Fiora. Fiora jungle, right? Like they nerfed Fiora a little bit, but Fiora jungle doesn't take that much of a hit from it. It's more Baron Lane Fiora that took a hit from it. Fiora jungle is just very decent pick, and it pretty much always works. Her dueling is very good, her later game is good, her ganking is pretty good. Not the best, but just good enough to be played in the jungle basically. You know, S tier champion. Next up we have Camille, and Camille jungle is just strong, yet again. Like her ganking is really good after level 5 because of that ultimate, of course, and her hook shot. Really, really good. Her late game is really, really good too. It's just her early mid game. You have to get through the early game. You have to get through the mid game. But once you reach the late game, once you reach the 3, 4, 5 item power spike, she's S+ tier. But of course, she's not that strong already. So she can get abused in the early game. Keep that in mind. Next up we have my boy Mundo again. Yet again, like I feel this champion doesn't get the love that he deserves. Really, like I am a Mundo believer. I play Mundo. I know how strong he is. I just don't quite understand why people don't play him that much. I do have quite a few Mundo videos, and I promise you guys I will work on a new one as well. Because I know he's strong. And I'm testing... Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'm testing out a new crazy build on him. Yet again, I'm not gonna spoil it. You guys just have to keep your eyes open for that. By the way, if you're not subscribed yet, I never really asked this, but if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. I don't know how many subscribers I have now. I believe it's like 86,000, something like that. But yeah, make sure you subscribe, you know. If you want to, if you don't want to, just watch the video. Next up we have Nunu, and honestly I want to give credits to Tyrus for this one. I don't know if you're watching the video, but honestly I've put Nunu in the A tier just because of you. I played Nunu, and I'm going to be bringing out a Nunu video very soon. I saw that he was very strong, but when I saw him also work so well in competitive in the hands of Tyrus, I was like, okay, this is like an A tier champion, nearly S+ tier, not quite, but just so strong. He has it all. He has it all. He has decent damage, incredible tankiness, incredible sustain, and incredible ultimate. He basically buys so much time for his team with his kit. You know, you can root all of the enemies, knock them up, eat up to heal up, use your stone plate, use your ultimate to get a barrier, slow them all down. Just he has it all. If you have to buy time for your team, Nunu is your champion to pick. So if your team has super high damage and you just want to buy time, you pick Nunu. Next up, Irelia in the skilled hands. Same story, super duper powerful, even in the jungle. And then we have Vi. The thing about Vi is, like, she's strong, but late game she struggles a little bit unless you're snowballing. Like if you're snowballing, you can never come back against a Vi because she will become unkillable with her shield. That is the beauty about Vi, by the way. But if Vi is behind and you get to the late game, she will have a really hard time, because then like when you ult in as a Vi, you're just gonna get one shot. But when you're ahead, as I said, it's nearly impossible to win against a Vi when she's ahead. So that's the thing with Vi. Like she's a bit of a coin flippy champion, I would say. Next up we have Jarvan, who is pretty decent. You know, if you can utilize the ultimate well as a Jarvan, like if you're not against enemies that have a lot of dashes, you know, for example, Ezreal can just dash out of your ultimate, right? Seth can just jump out of your ultimate. Camille can jump out of your ultimate. Kha'Zix can jump out. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, Gragas as well. So he's pretty draft reliant. Like when you use your ultimate and force the enemies to use flash to get out of your ultimate, that's worth it, right? Like that is worth it, and that's when Jarvan is a viable pick. Next up, which is a very underrated pick, which is Rammus. I think Rammus is broken in a full attack damage against a full attack damage composition, like S+ tier if you're against a full AD composition. But even if you're just against a heavy AD composition and that the enemy only has like some like a little bit of ability power, just get a With's End and you'll still be super tanky. Like he's such a tanky champion against attack damage champions, and he just hard counters ADCs. Like he can use his second ability and deal just as much, if not even more damage to the ADCs that are hitting him. Really, really strong champion. Next up, Morgana jungle. Her jungle clear got buffed. Her jungle clear is really strong. I believe it's the fastest in the game. It's just she's very squishy. She can get invaded very easily. You know, of course, like when she gets to the late game, she's strong, but they nerfed her late game as well, so it's not that strong. Her ganking is a bit questionable too, because it's a bit hard to hit your first ability. It's just, she's strong, but she doesn't really have all the tools that she needs as a jungler, so I wouldn't rate her high as a jungler. Next up we have Riven, and honestly same story for Riven. Riven's ganking is really not good. Like even though Riven after level 5 is very strong in the jungle, she can win duels pretty well. Her team fighting is really good. She just doesn't have the ganking and doesn't have that early game power, so that's just not that strong. Pantheon, you know, just gets outclassed by everyone in the mid-late game, and he even gets beaten by Xin Zhao in the early game, so he's just not meta right now. It just doesn't work that well in the jungle anymore. Jace, yet again, I don't want to talk about Jace. I hate that champion so much that no, I'm joking. I'll talk about him a little bit. It just feels like people kind of understood Jace now, right? Like Riot kept nerfing and nerfing him after the big buff, and now he's at a spot where he's kind of balanced. But the problem is everyone just knows exactly how to play against him because he was so broken. Everyone was forced to learn how to play against Jace. So, you know, he's just not that strong anymore. Next up we have Sett, and they nerfed his jungle clear. So his jungle clear is really not that fast anymore. His ganking is quite underwhelming, and yeah, you know, just not that strong in the jungle right now. Sure, he's still a strong champion, but his jungle clear just really took a massive hit, which doesn't really make him that strong of a jungler anymore. Next up, Shyvana, way too reliant on dragons. Like enemies can just pick strong champions to fight you at the dragon and deny you that dragon. And if like 2 dragons get denied from Shyvana, she's so useless. Like she just does, like she's just underwhelming really. She really needs those dragons. Next up, Tryndamere jungle. Again, I don't believe in the Tryndamere jungle. I believe in the Tryndamere Baron lane. Tryndamere jungle, his ganking is trash. Like tragically trash. So I just don't believe in it. And his early game fighting is really weak too. So fighting for those scuttles, it's just not going to work for him. Sure, in the late game he becomes immensely powerful. But when you're already there, like, you've probably lost the early and mid game and the ganking game so hard to other junglers like Master Yi, Gragas, Evelynn, Lee Sin, Kha'Zix, you know, champions that can do insane ganking. Next up, Shen jungle, just don't do it. I'm only putting him here because I've seen some people play it. Don't do it. His jungle clear is really, really bad. Next up, Amumu, yeah. He's just not good. He's just not good, guys. What am I supposed to say? He's just really weak. His ultimate is incredibly underwhelming. The 1.5 second stun is just nothing, guys. Like, it's really nothing. Just get Mercury's threats and the stun doesn't really do anything. Next up, a mid lane. And this one is interesting. So let's get into it. So first up, we have Diana, and Diana is just an all-round insane champion. She works very well against current meta champions because she works well against melees. That's the first thing. Secondly, there is this item, Crystaline's Reflector, which is quite literally the perfect item for Diana, which is an absolute hard counter to heavy AD compositions, which we are seeing a lot in the current meta because of the AD items that got added, right? Like, that's how you have to think. Diana S+ tier, like, she just works into all of that. Next up, Irelia, also an S+ tier champion in the mid lane. Only in the skilled hands, however. Irelia, you know, when she gets ahead, it's game over. And if you play even against her, you just need to make one mistake and she catches you and you just die. She's just so strong, especially after the buff. You Irelia players out there are gonna love it. And I have some nice news for you guys. You guys are gonna love this. I played my first 2 Irelia games today. Finally. I finally said, screw it, I'm gonna do it. I actually rewatched my Irelia guide. That's kind of funny. I went into practice mode, practiced some combos, went into a PvP match and practiced her twice. First game it went pretty well. Second game I got destroyed, but just so you guys know, I'm practicing her. Next up, Orianna, and you know, Orianna just, like, she's not broken. That's the beauty of Orianna. She's not even broken, but she's still on the S+ tier. Why, you would think? Let me explain to you why. She always works. She just always works. There's just no counters against her. Like, I would probably say from this whole list, the only champion that could beat out an Orianna, like, pretty well is Diana. But besides that, no one. Orianna just plays her lane safe and outskills nearly everyone in the late game. That's the thing about Orianna. You really have to shut her down in the early game. And if you don't, especially if you give her a few kills, it's just game over. Next up we have Galio, and before you tell me something, let me tell you why I put Galio here. situational pick. And you may ask, okay, but Nasus is also a draft reliant pick. Why did you not put Nasus at top of the S tier? Let me tell you. Because Galio is utterly broken in the right draft. Like, free win. Now let me tell you right now exactly what that draft is. And I am probably going to be making a Galio video as well. I have some on my channel already, but I may make an updated one. Are you up against magic damage assassins? AP Gragas, Katarina, Akali, Evelyn. These champions, pick Galio and win the game. So like if the enemy picks at least 2 of those, you just literally pick Galio and win the game. Like it's nearly impossible to lose the game. You just counter them so hard. They're just essentially useless against you if you play Galio correctly. If you want to learn how to play Galio, look up my Galio videos. You'll actually see that in nearly every video of mine where I picked Galio, I am up against one of those assassins, one of those mage assassins. So that's just a quick Galio tip for you. Let's now get to Yasuo. Yasuo feels strong with the new buff. They buffed his tornado. It's significantly faster now and significantly harder to dodge. So he feels very strong now. It's just much easier to hit the tornado. And he is also one of those champions where the new Solari charge plate actually feels stronger than the old one. Like, he deals so much damage with it. His late game is immensely powerful. And as I said, like, the tornado is such a huge buff to him. It makes it so easy to hit. So now you don't have to rely on getting close to the enemy to actually hit something. Next up, Twisted Fate. And Twisted Fate is just always a good champion, especially with the fleet footwork, you know. Just really solid champion. He also counters a lot of meta champions like the Kha'Zix, like the Vayne, like the Akali, you know, like the Evelyn as well. Because, you know, when they're invisible, you just use your ultimate and you get true vision over all of them. So no one can become invisible anymore. So just, you know, if you're against those invisible champions, pick Twisted Fate and it's insanely powerful. Just use your ultimate during a team fight. You know, a lot of people think that Twisted Fate's ultimate is only useful for ganking because, of course, you can use it to teleport. But Twisted Fate's ultimate is, in some games, even more useful during team fights. Like if an Akali uses her shroud, you use your ultimate and she cannot escape. Like her shroud will become useless. Next up, Katarina, and this is same story as Aurelia for the one tricks. Like Katarina is strong, not that strong, but just strong. Like you can really get abused by a one trick Katarina, and that's why I've put her in the S tier. She's not good for your conventional player. She's just insanely strong for the one tricks, but she's so strong for the one tricks that she still deserves to be in the S tier. She actually feels quite underwhelming to me. Like she actually feels pretty weak, I would even say. It's just some people are so damn good at her that she's still strong. That's why they had to constantly nerf her. Next up, Gragas mid lane, and Gragas is just everywhere. S tier, S tier, S plus tier, everywhere. Like, what am I supposed to say? Gragas mid lane, same story as the Baron lane. Works. It's just he may get harassed a little bit in the mid lane, but he has his first ability to compromise for that. Like, he can harass the enemy right back, and then his ultimate to go all in. Like, he just has it all. He can be played in mid lane too and do just fine. Next up, we have Ziggs, and they nerfed his third ability, but still, it's Ziggs. S tier champion. You need some time to scale into the late game, and he does struggle a little bit in the current meta. Like there's a lot of champions with the Stormraiser, for example, that will slow him down and be able to catch him, but still S tier champion, like still a solid S tier. Next up we have Zed, and Zed is bugged. Zed's third ability doesn't actually proc Conqueror anymore, so a bit underwhelming right now. They also nerfed Zed, so still strong enough to be on top of the A tier, but because of this bug and the nerf, not that good anymore. Like, just your all-in combo deals quite significantly less damage, like a few hundred, maybe like 150, 200 less damage in the late game, which is a lot, of course. Like for an assassination champion, dealing that much less damage, it's a lot. Next up we have Ahri. Ahri is just good. Like, she has a lot of early game presence. You know, she can roam around, push lanes very fast, gank very well. She just has it. And in the late game, she's not that strong, but she can still catch out enemies and do a lot of damage. So she's just a very solid mid laner. But when you fall behind as an Ahri, it's a bit hard to make a comeback because enemies are just gonna get Mercury's threats. Your damage is gonna fall off, and that's why Ahri is not any higher than the A tier. Next up, we have Graves in the mid lane. We saw Snitch pull it off, guys. We saw him pull it off, and yet again, like from competitive, we're seeing all of these weird picks, but it works. It just works. If you pick him into the mid lane, you may struggle against mages, right? Like you may struggle against mages, but if you pick him into an Irelia, if you pick him into a Yasuo, if you pick him into a Galio, pick him into the Gragas, pick him into the Zed, you know, if you pick him into those types of champions, you will not struggle. You will actually very easily win your lane. So draft reliant, that is why he's in the A tier. Also in the mid lane, he's not quite as good as in the side lanes because you cannot split push as much. But still, incredibly solid champion. Morgana mid, a bit underwhelming, but still good enough. You know, just pretty good. Her wave clear is pretty nice. Her catching out potential is pretty nice with her root. And her late game is pretty nice. It's just, I don't know, like, I feel she's perhaps a bit underwhelming. Her black shield is amazing, of course. You know, when you have like a Master Yi in your team, you can give him the black shield and he won't get stunned. But besides that, it's just, you know, compared to the other champions, she doesn't provide that much damage. Next up, we have Brand. Brand is insanely strong, but only in the late game. His early game sucks, but you have to get to the late game. If you get to the late game, he's actually very powerful. He's one of the strongest mid laners in the late game even. But of course, we all know how Wild Rift goes. You don't always get to the late game. And his damage is very underwhelming in the early game. Although his laning is pretty easy because he has a lot of range. And when an enemy engages, you can just stun that enemy. Have I even made a Brand video? I think I haven't even made an updated Brand video. I've played a lot of Brand, so I should make you guys a Brand video too. And then next up, our boy Aurelion Sol. And I know you guys love him. And I am playing him a little bit. I've played like 15 games of Aurelion Sol. 15, which is, you know, decent. I am decent at him. But I believe I'm gonna need like 30, 40, maybe even 50 more games to get really good enough at him to make a video for you guys. So I am working on it. But some other champions just have more priorities than him for me. Next up, Lucian mid. Lucian mid, just very solid. You know, in the middle of the A tier, just solid. Not that good, just solid. Corki, of course, Corki with the package, really powerful. He may struggle in the mid lane against matchups like the Ziggs, like the Gragas, even like the Katarina, Twisted Fate. He may struggle against those, and that is why he's just not that high up. But his package kind of compromises for that, right? Like his package makes him so strong during those objectives. You know, whether you're fighting for the Rift Herald or the Dragon, it's the package that really makes your team fighting super powerful, which is why he's in the A tier. Next up, Akali. I feel that Akali is pretty weak. It's just, yet again, players are so good at this champion that she's still viable. Like, Riot just kept nerfing and nerfing and nerfing Akali, but players are just still good enough at her. So, still an A tier champion. Not very high up in the A tier, but high enough to be viable. And if you're good at her, just play her. You know, you're going to be doing super well with her anyways. Jace. Yet again, you know, I hate Jace so much, but it's just such a stupid champion. Like, who plays Jace? Let's be honest, right? Like, I'm joking. Okay, I'm joking. Jace is fine in the mid lane. He's just fine. But him as well, he kind of gets harassed in the mid lane. He cannot harass as much back because his empowered first ability, you know, when he shoots that ball, got nerfed by 10%. So just his poking got nerfed, which was a really big part of his damage. So, you know, his hammer form is still great, but his hammer form in the mid lane is not going to be benefiting him that much. Next up, we have Karma in the mid lane. Just play her as a support. Like, I know Karma is strong, but she's just not suited for mid lane, really. She's really not that suitable for mid lane. She's going to have a bit of a hard time to win mid lane. Like, sure, she's fine. Sure, she's good. Sure, she can work in certain drafts, but it's just a bit underwhelming. Her ganking, I mean, is decent with the root, but I just don't really like it. Like, I don't really like Karma mid lane compared to other champions. Next up, we have Veigar, and yeah, Veigar takes long to skill. He takes very long to skill. You know what the beauty is of Veigar, by the way? And this is a quick little secret with your boy Hells. Veigar absolutely hard counters Master Yi. It's a big wink from me right there. So if the enemy picks Master Yi, you're gonna be like, this YouTuber, HellsDevil right here, told me to pick Veigar. And don't get me wrong, it's not easy to play, but once you get to the late game, you're gonna one-shot Master Yi. That's the beauty of it. All you have to do, wait for Master Yi's first ability to run out, and right after that, boom, your ultimate will absolutely one-shot him. Just so you know. But that's the thing with Veigar, right? Like, how do you pick Veigar? How do you play him? To learn how to play him, just watch my videos. I'm really good at Veigar. But to learn how to pick him, let me quickly give you an introduction. Pick him into Assassins. He's insanely strong into Assassins. Like, when Assassins go on top of you, you can just ult them and destroy them. Or just pick him into champions that are squishy that engage on you, like Fiora, right? Like these types of champions. Okay, enough Veigar. Next up, Lulu mid lane. If you want to play a funneling composition with like a Jax jungle or a Jinx ADC or Vayne ADC, you can be picking Lulu in the mid lane and then another support in the support role. Lulu can actually hold her ground in the mid lane against most champions, and although she cannot carry, she will provide so much support to the hyper carry that she's a good mid laner. Seraphine mid lane only really works against melee compositions. If the enemy has ranged compositions, it doesn't work because you just can't hit them. But if you're up against like a full melee composition, that's your time to shine with Seraphim. And that's why she's in the B tier, because she is way too draft reliant currently. Next up, Lux mid lane. You know, it's good if you're good at her because you can catch out enemies. Your ultimate is amazing. Your shielding is pretty good. But she just feels a bit underwhelming because she doesn't have any escaping tools or anything like that. It's just meh. Next up, Annie, you know, takes some time to get to the late game. She's not as strong as before. She doesn't one-shot anymore, but late game Annie is still late game Annie. And then you may be asking, what the hell is Fizz doing in the C tier? Fizz's ultimate is currently bugged. It doesn't hit an enemy if the enemy is running away, which makes him C tier, because if enemies know how to exploit this, you're pretty much useless, because Fizz without his ultimate, like, what are you supposed to do? Your ultimate is like half of your kit. Next up, Kill sucks, don't play it. Cannon sucks, don't play it. And Teemo sucks, don't play it in the mid lane. Now on to the dragon lane. Oh baby, look at my boy sitting right there. Oh my god, I'm so proud of him. Jhin is S+ tier. Oh, I wanted to say that so badly one day. I wanted to say this sentence so badly one day. Oh man, I'm actually gonna cry, man. This is too much. I'm loving the game so much now. Like, I'm playing Jhin every single game and I'm just winning every single game. Like, in the new patch, I believe I have like a 90% win rate on Jhin. I even reached top 10 Jhin in the first day. He is so good. He is unbelievably good. Like, if you haven't seen it already, and you have to. Like, if there is one champion that you have to see me play, it's Jhin. Watch my Jhin videos. Just any Jhin video, really. I've always been good at this champion. Just S+ tier. The only weakness of Jhin, actually there's two weaknesses. One weakness is tanks. It's not even like he's not even that weak against tanks. That's the beauty, but still, like, that is one of his weaknesses, which he's actually pretty good against now too. And then the second weakness is falling too behind. But besides that, Jhin outskills in the late game. Jhin just outskills in the late game now. He's not only good in the early game, he's not only decent in the mid game, he outskills in the late game. He even outskills a Vayne in the late game. Of course, he doesn't outskill Yuumi Vayne, but I'm just talking about individual ADCs against each other. Because if you put Yuumi on a Jhin as well, he's incredibly powerful, of course, but what I'm trying to say, if you put all of these ADCs up against each other, he outskills all of them. As in, like, his value that he can provide to his team is insane. Like, you shred the enemy squishes. You absolutely shred their squishes. And with the full energized build with 5 items, the damage is, no one can block that damage, especially because you have a mortal reminder. Even tanks are going to be struggling against you. And that 4th shot, oh baby, 25% missing health damage. Huge damage, huge. Your executing is insane. Jhin outsmites every single other champion in the game. That's another thing about the champion. Jhin takes turrets super fast. Jhin takes jungle camps super fast. Jhin clears waves super fast. He has it all. He has it all. He literally has it all. He has it all in his kit, and that is why he's finally in the S+ tier. Oh, it feels good to say. Oh, okay. Alright, let's talk about Xayah. Xayah is just good, like, really good. She always works, she really benefits from the Stormraiser as well. And she works against a lot of the meta champions. Like, she works against champions like Master Yi, right? Like, when Master Yi uses his first ability on you, you just use your ultimate as a Xayah, then you root him and you destroy him. Xayah just works against all of these champions. Like, also the strong Baron lane champions. Xayah does really well into Graves, really well into Aurelia. She just does really well into those engaging champions, which are very good in the current meta. That is why I've put her in the S+ tier. Next up, Varus, and like, Varus is Varus, right? Like Varus is just always a good pick. Even if you fall behind, the percentage damage that your second ability does is huge. Your ultimate is huge. He's just good. Like his flat damage is just insane. So even if you fall behind, he's really good. And if you get ahead, he's even better. Next up we have Jinx, guys. And Jinx feels strong, especially combined with an enchanter, especially with Karma, by the way. Really strong, like with the Stormrazor too, you know, the slow that it gives you. Because the thing is, Stormrazor Jinx is so powerful because you slow the enemy, then you can hit your second ability for free, because the Stormrazor slows the enemy, and so they cannot dodge away your second ability, so you hit them for free. So it's a Stormrazor slow, then it's your second ability slow, and then you can follow up. That is pretty much the sole reason why Jinx has risen from A tier to the S tier. That is pretty much the whole reason. Like, yeah, 100% the reason. I've tried Jinx, and that's the thing with the Stormrazor. I will make an updated Jinx video as well, by the way. It's just you can catch out enemies so easily now, and we all know what happens when Jinx gets a kill or an assist, right? You just wipe the entire enemy team. So her catching out potential becoming better just really makes her as a champion itself insanely good, because it perfectly complements her kit. Next up we have Vayne, and Vayne is Vayne. Vayne is Vayne. Then we have Kai'Sa. Yeah, Kai'Sa is good. She's just good. I don't like Stormrazor on her. I've tried it. I don't really like it. What am I supposed to say? Kai'Sa is just good. Like, she works against a lot of champions too. She's just always a good pick. She doesn't really have any big counters. Kai'Sa actually hard counters Jhin, if you didn't know already. When I play Jhin, I always ban Kai'Sa, because Kai'Sa hard counters Jhin. Just so you guys know, I don't like to be revealing this information because it's my boy Jhin. I would never want to reveal counters to it, but Kai'Sa counters Jhin. Draven is good. Yet again, like, just he's good. Like, he's really good. They buffed his ultimate in the, not in the recent patch, but in the patch before, which makes it very solid. Like, it gives him a lot more damage. Then Orianna and the Dragon Lane can just always play safe and still do insane damage. Like, I just hate Orianna. And, like, it's fun to play, but I just hate how easy that champion is, really. Like, I really hate how you can just not do well the entire game and then just get to the late game and completely hard carry. Next up, Ezreal. Divine Sunderer Ezreal sucks before you ask me, but he's just still solid with the Trinity Force and with the buffed attack damage scaling in the late game. If you get to the late game, you know, when you get like 2 items and then get to your 3rd and 4th and 5th, that's where his power spike starts, and that's where he becomes insanely strong. But the problem is getting to that, right? Like, before that, he's weak. He's pretty weak. You just kind of have to play your game out safe. He's really bad at pushing waves, right? Like, he's really bad at early game. But when you get to that mid-late game, he's really strong, like insanely strong. Next up, Ziggs Dragon Lane. Same story as Orianna. Same story as Orianna, basically. Exactly the same. Like, he can push out waves very fast. It's a very powerful mage. You can play your lane safe. You can throw your bombs at the enemy, win your lane pretty easily. The only thing that he's weak against is engage. If the enemy has like a Leona or something, they can just hard engage on you and destroy you as a Ziggs. So that would be the only thing, but besides, you can just play your lane safe and win. Then we have Caitlyn. Caitlyn with the new Stormrazor, really strong. Like, she's pretty strong. It's still Caitlyn. See, the problem with Caitlyn is she only really has one big problem, I would say, which is her mid game. Her early game is strong because she has a big range. Her late game is insane, but her mid game is just so useless. Like, when you're between level 5 and level 12, she just feels so underwhelming. Her damage is like nothing. You really need to get armor penetration to start penetrating through the front lines. Other ADCs are much better at that. You know, when you have Jhin with the percentage health damage, when you have Jinx with the roots, with the rockets, when you have Vayne with the true damage, Kai'Sa with the HP damage, Draven with the snowball, like all of the champions above have tools to shred through that. Caitlyn doesn't, up until the armor penetrating item. So as a Caitlyn, you need 3 items. 3, that's right, to be strong. And of course, she's also strong in the early game, but that big gap in the middle, that's what makes her an A tier champion and not any higher. Next up we have Lucian. Just good. Like, the Solari nerf actually hit him pretty hard. Stormrazor is good on Lucian, but it's just not quite as good as the Solari Charge Blade used to be. So, you know, while he's still strong, it's just a bit underwhelming compared to the other champions with the Solari Charge Blade, like the Jhin, for example. Then we have Corki. Yet again, same story as the mid lane. Corki got nerfed because of the Solari Charge Blade nerf as well, and he doesn't really benefit that much from Stormrazor. Sure, it's okay, but it's not that good. But his package, right? Like, his package is what makes him solid, and that's what puts him in the A tier. Next up, we have Ashe. I made an Ashe video recently, which showcased a build, which is actually an S, which definitely makes her like S tier or S plus tier in the right draft. But you're not gonna see that draft all too often. Like, pick her into the right draft. Quick tip: Ashe absolutely hard counters Thresh. Just a quick tip for you guys: if the enemy picks a Thresh, that's your moment to shine with an Ashe. So, you know, I'm just saying to you guys, if the enemy picks a Thresh, that's your moment to shine on this champion. Next up, Tristana, and I'm working on a Tristana video, guys. Good news for you all, I am working on a video, and from what I found, she's not that strong. Like, okay, she's okay with the Storm Rider, she's okay, but she's just not that strong. Like, she's a bit underwhelming compared to the other ADCs. She's just not that strong. It takes really long for her to come online. I would say she only becomes strong after like level 11, 12. Before that, she's just so weak. She's so weak. Like, her damage is just so underwhelming. But of course, after level 10, after level 11, 12, you get a lot of range. Like, she gets 10 range every level up. So in the late game, you actually have very big range. And with that range, that's what makes her good. Then we have Akshan, very underwhelming dragon laner. I made a video for him very recently where I actually absolutely dominated the enemy, but just quite underwhelming. Compared to the other ADCs, just doesn't provide as much damage. You know, when you need raw damage per second, Akshan is not going to deliver. He's just not going to deliver. Akshan is all about reviving the enemies, kiting the enemies, and, you know, shredding through their tanks as well. So he's just not that good, as in, like, he just doesn't deal that much damage compared to the other ADCs. Miss Fortune feels very underwhelming now. I remember a time like when Miss Fortune was really powerful, but everyone just knows how to play against Miss Fortune, and a lot of the meta champions absolutely hard counter Miss Fortune, like the Irelia. Like, when you play Miss Fortune against Irelia, Miss Fortune is just absolutely a useless champion. Irelia can just dodge around your ultimate very easily. Then we have Senna. Don't play Senna Dragon Lane. It's just not good. Please don't do it. I hate to see it. Don't do it. They nerfed the range of her passive. It's just not that strong anymore. So now on to the support list. And this list may look a little weird to you guys, because as you can see, there is a whole tier empty. And do you think this is a mistake? It's not a mistake. I was making the tier list and I was really trying to think, like, what? Did I really just leave the S tier open? And then I was really trying to think, oh wait, I forgot Sona. Oh my god. Sona? I would actually put her here. Okay, so let's talk about the list. I nearly forgot Sona. Ooh. You Sona mains out there, we're probably gonna be cursing me out, because this is the only tier list where Sona can shine. But I got you guys, don't worry. So let me first explain why there is a gap. So the gap between the S plus tier champions and the rest is huge. The S plus tier champions, which are a lot of champions, by the way, like, again, as I said, I was really trying to think this through, but this is what came out of it. Like, there's so many strong support champions. You know, I have 7 in the S plus tier, but the rest just feels underwhelming. Like, if you compare Alistar, Leona, and Janna to Yuumi, Thresh, Rakan, it's just super underwhelming, like so underwhelming that it's a whole extra tier below. So let's talk about the champions individually right here. Yuumi. I think everyone that watched this video has already at least met one Yuumi Vayne or Yuumi Master Yi, right? Like, you've probably met at least one of those Yuumi players, and it's obnoxious. It just provides raw damage. Like, in the late game, I believe it's 22% extra raw damage, and it's even more. I think it's skills with ability power, just some crazy stuff like that. And then the healing, the movement speed, the attack speed, the ultimate, the slow, the percentage HP damage, the passive bonus damage, and the stupid barrier. I just ban Yuumi every game, and you should too. This champion is just absurdly broken. Like, if Yuumi is playing support for a good player, it's broken. Broken. Like, I was even playing Yuumi Jin, just absurd damage. It's not even normal. I've never seen something crazy like that. Next up, we have Thresh, and Thresh is in another way broken. And like, Thresh has all of the tools to catch out an enemy, and becomes incredibly tanky in the late game. Like, Thresh can just 1 versus 1 most ADCs in the late game. except for Ashe and Vayne, right? Like these are the counters to Thresh. But like if you're up against a Jinx, for example, when you play Thresh and you have a lot of armor stacks, you can actually 1v1 the Jinx with the passive of your third ability. That's the beauty of this champion. So you're very tanky, you're very nice frontline, you can buy a lot of time for your team, and you have a lot of CC. So Thresh really has it all. Next up we have Rakan, which is a broken pick in competitive, but in solo queue I feel not that good. Well, it is still S+ tier, but not broken. And the reason is because ganking as a support doesn't happen as often with Rakan. Rakan's big power is ganking, but it doesn't happen that often in solo queue, which is why I haven't put him above Yuumi. So like Rakan is already strong, his laning is strong, his full AP build is strong, he deals so much damage. But besides that, he's even stronger because he can gank. Like that's for the competitive games. He can gank lanes, use his second ability to knock up enemies and just gank, right? But if you don't do the ganking, it's just an S+ tier champion. Not an utterly broken champion, just still an S+ tier champion. Next up we have Braum. Yet again, like Braum, S+ tier champion. Just works so well into certain compositions with that massive shield of his, the insane stun that his passive provides, and the damage that it deals as well. And then also the ultimate, game-changing ultimate. It knocks up enemies, creates a slowing aura. He has it all. So he's quite literally the perfect frontline to have for your team. If the enemies don't have tools at their disposal to counter out the Braum, Braum can just protect their team so damn well. Next up we have Nami. Like one of the best enchanter supports in the game. Her healing is insane. Her CC is beyond insane, right? The first ability knock up, the ultimate knock up plus the slow is insane. And she has the combos as well. You can use your ultimate to knock up all of the enemies and then slow them. And the slow is so big that you should be able to hit your first ability for free as well. So she has chain CC, and then to top it all off, she gives movement speed to her allies, and she can buff the damage of her allies with her third ability. Just insane champion, really. Karma, S+ tier as well. Incredibly strong support. She has it all as well. Her shielding is insane. The movement speed that it gives is really, really big. And then the shield itself is also really big. Her first ability is good poking. Her second ability is very good CC. And then the ultimate, oh my god. Like, it's basically a Diana ultimate, but you can throw it from a safe distance. It's really, really strong. And then next up we have Lulu. Lulu in the right draft, you know, when you pick Lulu with a Jinx, when you pick Lulu with a Vayne, basically when you pick Lulu with a attack speed champion, really, really strong. She's very draft reliant, keep that in mind. You have to pick her with the right champions, otherwise she's kind of useless. But if you do pick her with the right champions, S+ tier champion. In the S tier we have no one, as said. And then we have Alistar in the A tier. Alistar kind of requires a good player. You know, I know Keys, who's a good friend of mine. He's insanely good at Alistar. But I also know a lot of players that are not that good at Alistar. So that's the thing with Alistar. It's reliant on the player. You have to know the combos. I made an Alistar video with Keys, by the way. If you want to see it, look up HellsDevil Alistar and watch the latest Alistar video. And the other ones are very interesting as well. So I heavily recommend watching that one. But Alistar is an insane tank. Like the turret diving potential of Alistar is better than any other champion because of your ultimate, of course. And then Alistar is also same story as Thresh. You can 1v1 ADCs in the mid-late game. That's how strong the champion is in 1v1, and that's how tanky he is. Next up we have Leona. You know, the thing is, Leona just feels like a weaker Thresh or a weaker Rakan. Like she kind of does the same, but just not that good. And sure, her tankiness is very nice too, you know, with the second ability. Just feels honestly a bit underwhelming. Like you can just get Mercury's threats against Leona and you kind of deny her full combo. She's still strong, don't get me wrong, that's why she's in the A tier, but just compared to the S+ tier champions, she's not really a match. Next up, Janna. And Janna as well, right? Like she's a very nice enchanter. Her ultimate is very good in the right draft. Like if the enemies cannot cancel your ultimate, it basically resets your entire team because it gives so much health and you can go right back into the fight. But besides that, you know, it's just a Janna. It's just a Janna. And she doesn't really do that much compared to the S+ tier champions. Then we have Gragas support, and yet again, Gragas is here again, chilling in the A tier this time. Not in the S tier or the S+ tier. In the support, he's in the A tier. He's just good as a support. And the problem is only, you're not going to get as much gold, but you can just build a Rod of Ages and still do a lot of damage, because the item skills into the late game, and even if you don't get a lot of gold funneled through you, because you're the support, you're still going to be dealing a lot of damage because you have a lot of ages. Then we have Lux. Lux works very well with certain champions, you know. Lux support is different from mid lane because as a support, you can fully upgrade your second ability and the shielding is huge. And of course, you can catch out enemies with your root and provide a lot of value as well. But it's especially about the shield. Like, the shield is just very, very nice. You can hit multiple allies with it and you can get things like Staff of Flowing Water, Ardent Sensor, Harmonic Echo, and you can heal multiple allies with that because you can hit the shield on multiple allies. Next up is Blitzcrank. They buffed Blitzcrank. Actually, no, they just changed Blitzcrank because they nerfed his base stats, but they changed his second ability. It has another charge now. I feel people haven't fully seen the potential of Blitzcrank yet, but I just think he's just an A tier champion, just pretty good. Not that strong, you know, he's just good. Like, he can hit hooks way easier now than before. That's the thing, which Blitzcrank really is all about. So also in the late game, you can catch out enemies a bit more easily now. Next up, Soraka. Soraka is insane. Like, she's very strong with the healing, but if the enemy is able to dive her and kill her, just not that good. And Karma does very well into that because Karma gives a lot of movement speed. She can root Soraka, the ultimate, first ability slow. So, and also champions in the current meta like the Master Yi can just hard dive the Soraka and completely decimate her. So just feels a bit underwhelming in the current meta. Next up, Galio. Galio is just a decent support. Yet again, he works very well against those mage assassins, but as a support, it's a bit different because you're going to be engaging and taunting all of the enemies with your second ability. So especially if the enemies are melee, a lot of them, his second ability becomes very valuable and he becomes a very strong support in the mid-late game. Then we have Sona, who I believe is a very underrated support because if she reaches the late game, she's so damn strong. Like, sure, her early game is a bit underwhelming, but late game, if she reaches late game, it's game over. Like, it's basically game over because she's going to be healing all of her allies. So if she has a Staff of Flowing Waters or an Ardent Sensor, she's going to be providing the bonuses to all of them, which no other support can do, by the way. Just insane. Just absolutely insane how crazy her healing is and everything like that, and her buffs and just everything. Ashe support is great too if picked into the right draft. Like, as I said, into a Thresh, you can get away with picking Ashe support and just completely decimate the Thresh. Go for the Black Cleaver build and easy peasy win. Pantheon support is just good in the early game, allows you to catch out an enemy very easily, especially good if combined with a Jhin or a Jinx, for example, because they have the follow-up. You know, their second abilities is great follow-up to Pantheon stun. Next up, Seraphine support, same story as mid lane, only works against melee champions, otherwise useless. Senna support is okay. You know, it's okay, especially with the Divine Sunderer. I need to make a new video on Senna support actually with the Divine Sunderer. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that for you guys. Shan support, no, just no. Like, it's just not good. His laning is very weak as a support. Malphite support, only good if you go full AP because he does a lot of damage. Any support, no. Kill support, no. Amumu support, no. So that is it for the tier list video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still watching, you're a legend. And yeah, that was a long ass one. I will see you all in the next Wild Rift video. Bye bye.